Plate and 2 gaskets serve as a cork for all of this stuff that's got fluid sitting up in it.
Brian's Mobile One.
Use a T30 to pull the center plug out of the drain plug, or the standpipe plug as it's called. Once it's just piddling lightly, put it back in the middle part and then take out the big main one. You can see that my knuckles are the lowest point, and when I go like this, it'll drip into the filter instead of dripping down my arm. Get it to where it's just right close and about to go. Get your knuckles pointed, go a little bit more, and then pull and drop it out of the way. No mess, no fuss. This jug here is only at about 2.5 quarts, and this is starting to piddle slow. It'll piddle slow like this for a long time. We're at the point now to where we're at this high point. You can see it's raised here. So there's still quite a bit of fluid in the pan. We can pour that through our filter, but it's going to continue to piddle like this for a long time. So we're going to go ahead and put our standpipe back in. You can tell this is what the standpipe looks like. It's hollow. You've got your plug on the other side. So when it's running, it wants to be at this level. You want to have at least that much to sump from. Normally you'll have a soft rubber type washer that's stuck on this. I use the one from the transmission rebuild kit. I don't like it, but it's what I got. We'll go ahead and put this back in at this point. Now that we got the plug back in, we're ready to get the pan dropped. Ideally, you want to put the transmission in neutral so that you can line up the little line here that says neutral. There's something that corresponds there. There's 2 8mm bolts. You know what? We're going to leave that park switch on there. If you need to adjust the bands or do anything else while you're in here doing a pan off service, you'll want to pull this. It's 2 8mm bolts. I call it the Perndle switch for park, reverse, neutral, drive, low. When you pull the pan down, this is attached to the pan. These are your 2 babysitter or BS oxygen sensors that babysit your catalytic converter for the onboard diagnostic test. Just pry this back off, bungee it or something, and plug the Perndle, and then we're ready to pull the pan bolts and then just drop the pan straight down. It's a good idea to just wipe it down so that you don't get any of that grit or whatever in your eyes, on your face, or wherever. We've had 5th, 6th, and 7th winter. We've had 1st, 2nd, and 3rd spring. Lots of salt. If you have to pull a valve body, it's a good idea to pull the cable. It's just these 2 13mm bolts here. So the electrics are the way to go. I mean, yeah, your batteries can run out on you and all that jazz. But the nice thing about them is they've got a light on them, and you're not wrestling with a cord and wrestling with everything else that you're doing. So those 2 are out. We're going to take this tool here, this little pry tool. This is made for doing body clips, but it works great for getting your transmission lever off. Once you have this bracket unbolted, you can just pull that 2 clicks. First click is reverse, and then neutral. At that point, your line lines up here, and you can get your Perndle right. If you get the Perndle switch out of the way, it's a lot easier to get your thing off. I think we're going to leave the Perndle on. We're pulling, why are we pulling all this stuff off? We're pulling it all off because this plug right here, we got to pull down, we're replacing the valve body, so we have to pull out the solenoid pack, and the solenoid pack has a 10mm head bolt that comes out of its M6x1 if you need a new bolt, but we got to get some room to get that out of there. Or you can just bypass all that and put it in low. If you don't have the Perndle in the way and the exhaust in the way, it's really easy to just pop this off like that. Otherwise, you got to kind of angle it. Once that's off, then we just want to clear this bracket forward of this strut, get it out of the way. The miracle tool that everybody wants to know about is this. It's a 10mm ratcheting box wrench. This one's a Gear Wrench brand. But you just put this up on there, and it's short enough that you can get a good throw of the wrench. It is a little tedious. So this is how I do it. My left hand goes up over the wire harness and holds the wire harness up out of the way. And then I'm using my middle finger or my ring finger to hold that on the nut. And then I just move it back and forth with my right hand through this opening. It works pretty good. I just start dropping bolts into a magnet dish, of course. There we go. So what I try to do is find where they're going to fall, and I'll just pull them and drop them to that point. Magnet dish gets to be wherever the bolts want them to be, like that. And when I don't have a camera, I may even place them or catch them with my other hand. It's like a carnival game. Part of the fun of being a mechanic. So I've got it all pulled. except for this bolt here and this bolt here. Those are my two hanger bolts. You can see I'm gapping it up here. We're ready to come down. So now I get down to where I'm this far back from it. I put it up and just hold it there with my hand, and then I use my extension. I spin out the last two bolts by hand with the pans here and here, and then I've got two hands on the pan, and you just gently lower it down. Don't slip. You will find that it's the perfect size and shape to catch everything that's dripping. Looking under the transmission, this is your solenoid pack. You got two bolts hiding in here. You've got one hiding here that's short. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in an arc shape that hold the rest of it. And then the one bolt that's in your plug up here that we've already started to pull off. You want to look at your bands while this is done. Make sure the ends of the bands aren't messed up. If you've got P0735 and P0732, you may have a problem here, or you just may need to adjust the band and just tighten it a little bit. Reverse servo piston is in here, and then your other ones are here and here for these two bands. We got to pull the long bolts here and here and set them aside. We got 4 long bolts in here we got to yank out, and then we've got one that's hiding underneath of the detent. And then we got our detent bolt, and then just a whole bunch of them. There's a 10 millimeter that is right behind here. There's a 10 millimeter there. And then the rest are all 8s and uniform in size. All the bolts are pulled out for the solenoid pack. And as you look up above at the plug here, I can pull down on it. And because I loosened it, the plug will wiggle with it and come down a little bit and then stop. Now I need to pull that bolt out the rest of the way to get this out, and that's why I pulled all the stuff above. And then I'm going to pull the filter, the reverse, and then the valve body. You have to pull the filter because the filter bolts hold the valve body on. You have to pull the reverse because it's got that thing that sticks out over the valve body, and then this obviously is holding the valve body on as well. And then you have to pull the bolt to the plug to get this to come down. This steady stream right here is just about permanent during this job because the torque converter drains through right here, just the top half. I've demonstrated this plug here. I've got a bolt back in here to catch it so it doesn't fall and hit the pan and splash me with fluid. You'll get to a point where it feels like you're just flipping that ratchet back and forth and it's not getting anywhere. And at that point, you got this in about 3 or 4 threads. Double O-rings are going to allow it to drag as it comes down, and then it'll just be hanging. At this point, you can get your socket back out by hand, unscrew the 2 or 3 threads, and then this is free to come out. There's the plug, there's the bolt, and our solenoid pack's out. This is your manual valve. Your manual valve moves in and out with the Pernal or manual, whatever. You see that? Make sure that you line that up when you're coming back out. I've got mine all the way to the low gear. You can put it in whatever gear you want. You just need to make it match. This just slides freely. You can pull it all the way out and it can fall if you're not careful. If you're replacing the valve body, usually the manual valve will be recycled. You pull it out and stick it in the new one because there's nothing really holding it in for shipping and it can cause damage, so they leave it out. 10 millimeter bolt goes here, not in the corner, just one in from the corner on the far side. You can see where our filter went. You can see our filter bolts were right here, and our other filter bolt was further back behind right here. So we need to make sure that we don't put bolts in there where they don't belong. We've got a bolt hiding behind here. After we take off the detent, we'll be able to pull that one, and the rest are all the same. Just go nuts, pull them out, get them down. You see my solenoid pack is sitting on my filter. My filter's flipped over, it's going back in. Got my reverse piston sitting there just draining into the pan. For the part where we're doing the wires, because these are always full of dirt and grit and salt, we'll let that fall in the waste pan, and this will be clean over there. Try to keep your bolts in your magnet dish, try to keep everything as clean as possible so you don't have a bunch of excess junk clogging up your filter. That filter is intended for clutch wear material, band wear material, and gear synchronized mesh, whatever, from your Planet and your Sun gears. A lot of transmission guys that got roped into DeWalt in the beginning from the Mack truck, theirs all look like this because transmission fluid makes your rubber stuff swell on these. So what I do is, as I'm pulling these off, you know, a lot of builders, you can throw it on a bench and flip it upside down or on its side and pull the valve body off. If you're doing it in car, hang it off to the side so it's just the head and not the handle. And I like to hit everything on the outside first and on this side first, and then I'll go back through and stripe all these, get them all to these last, and then the last one right here, you can hang your gun, and it's in the middle. and it's off to the side. You can go all the way down out. You got to hold it up with your left hand like this. Go all the way out with it, get rid of the bolt, and then drop it the rest of the way. Bearing in mind, you got to line this up. Anytime you're coming on or off, pay attention to your manual valve. You don't want to drop it and ding it. If you put your valve body on and you forgot your manual valve, it's not lined up, there's a nut on the back side of this that you can take off, but you'd have to have your Perndle switch off. You have to get your 2.8mm out, neutral, all that, and pop it out. But from there, you can slide this out of the way, and this little finger that engages the manual valve, you can actually get that far enough in to where you can get your valve out, stick it back in, and then tighten your nut back down. I think it's 7/8 inch nut, that nut right there. By the way, with your valve body, your separator plate and two gaskets serve as a cork for all of this stuff that's got fluid sitting up in it. This is the one that just never quits forever. This is the one for your torque converter. So don't bother waiting for that to stop, just act and get her done. So keep it level or angle it to your pan or whatever you're gonna do, because it's gonna leak all over. If you look at my floor is pretty dang clean. I spilled a little bit here over the edge, but by and large, I've got this thing pretty squared away. It can be done pretty clean if you want. Haha, you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. This is part 1. There's going to be a part 2 coming out hopefully on Wednesday. If you want to make sure you hit subscribe and the bell notifications, it'll pop up in your feed for you. Try to support you guys, give you the information, everything you need. In the next video, we're going to have torque specs, how to fill it, all that kind of stuff. If you want to support me and help keep me around doing this kind of thing, one way that you can do it is also a favor I do for you is I provide the links for all these kind of tools. Click on the link down below for the Amazon stuff and I get a little bit of a kickback. Cheers, thanks for all you do. Take care.